Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Before we begin tonight, we spoke about some rather significant things last week. And I'm wondering whether anyone went home and thought about it and had some yes buts or some further questions. And so I want you to have time to address those if there are any.
So I asked the flower what it is, and it says it's thirsty. It says my leaves are dusty. And I get it a drink of water, and I don't spill any. And I dust its leaves, and I don't break any. Something's going on there, and it's not competence. When you said that we were incompetent, it rang so true, but I walk, I drive. There's this apparent activity of successful living. Can you tell me what that experience is?
Let me ask you, first of all, whether, as you're having this experience, you are conscious of being joined.
That's what came to me, was that this was activity that I wasn't doing alone. So a lot of what we're all experiencing is somewhat undistorted experience of the kingdom of heaven.
Oh, that is correct. You are not experiencing total distortion. What I want everyone to be clear on is that this subject of incompetence is not something for the ego to take and say, oh yeah, I'm incompetent. I accept that. And I realize that everything I'm doing doesn't express any competence I have. Yeah, got that under my belt. You see what I'm saying? When one arrives at the clarity that he or she is incompetent, he or she inevitably reaches out so as not to be alone, and joining occurs. And then you find, as long as you are joined, that your activities do reflect intelligence and competence, apparently, but it's very clear to you in the joined state where you are asking what is appropriate and where you are experiencing what is appropriate and embodying it in your actions, that none of what is happening by any authority of yours. The only authority you have expressed lies in the statement, "Thy will be done." So, we are talking about not only recognizing your incompetence, but what naturally follows if you believe what that really means. Because you can't stay in the state of incompetence long without asking for help. It's impossible. So all I'm saying is that if you're driving along or you're conducting activities, you might say, daily activities, and there's no clear sense, of being joined and of being guided, then what we talked about last week hasn't registered with you yet in its full meaning.
For a long time, I've kept reality at bay in maybe what you call the void or the silence, and then, there'd be outbursts as the pressure would build up. But I started communicating more consistently with you and with my guide, and the circle expanded a little bit. And then what you said about reality being divine, and to ask the flower its meaning, and that all of life is divine and is conspiring to keep us from being comfortably in our ignorance. I opened up, and what I found was that quickly the void filled up, and there was companionship from, not just from you or not just from my guide, but from everything around me, and the silence started to be filled up with harmony. And that was it was good to realize I'm in a friendly universe.
Yes, indeed. Just as a fine-tuning of this point regarding the flower, when you are in communion with the flower, you certainly will know what its needs are. In other words, whether it is thirsty, whether it needs fertilizer, and so on. But that does not express its meaning. Its meaning is eternal. And when you are awake, you will recognize and not be deluded by, you will recognize that it doesn't need water and it doesn't need fertilizer, because it is an eternal idea in the mind of God. And so, as a fine-tuning, as I say, when you're communing, you will be able to hear what the apparent needs are. But I want you to go further than that in asking the flower its meaning, so that you are asking to experience its divine meaning, its capital M meaning, the intent set into motion by the Father that appears as the flower, that will forever be its meaning. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it's the same with your fellow man. Mm-hmm. Because when you are listening for the truth about him or her, you are listening for the ultimate reality, the divine meaning that is changeless. But at the same time, you will be able to recognize the human need and meet it, even though that is not part of the eternal meaning.
That's what the Course means when it says we have to correct things the way we see them now in order to not see them that way at all. That we correct on the level that we think we're experiencing at in order to not see levels at all.
Well, certainly the correction will be at the level where the mistake is occurring. But you're not going to correct them. You're going to let them be corrected. And the correction will come in the realization that follows your asking, what is the truth here? Okay. Any other? Sure.
There's someone who's that I know of who's close to me. In fact, it's a family member who I believe to be, for a second time and recently, at the bottom of his barrel, and he's not asking for help that I know of directly, like of another person. I'm not even really sure how he's dealing with it, but when does one know, other than, I guess you're going to say, just to listen? I've tried to listen in regard to this, but because it's a close family member, it's sort of hard to feel comfortable with doing nothing. But I believe that's how I'm being directed right now. You spoke to me about this when it was occurring some time ago, and at that time you mentioned, well, he's gone really down under. He got way down there, but at that time he was starting to come up again, meaning that he was starting to not listen to that voice that was giving him the final option. So I'm trying not to be concerned about it, because I know that doesn't help, but at the same time I can be honest in saying I'm not really sure if I've heard correctly in regard to there being nothing more for me to do other than what I've already done.
You have been hearing absolutely correctly. And you must understand that because reality is the only thing going on, even though you look at it and call it the world, everything will conspire to stand in support of this family member's realization and healing. And therefore, you will know when it is time, and circumstances will provide you with the opportunity without your trying to create the opportunity. Even, you might say, in the illusion, divine order still operates because the illusion is only a distortion or a distorted perception of reality with a capital R, God being all. You see?
Yes.
Okay.
So the more relaxed I am about it, that's the best way I can be of help now. Yeah.
Yes, because that is what will allow you to be undistracted when the divine impulse to act occurs.
And I am under the impression that he would not appreciate hearing anything I have to say right now at all.
Not at the
yeah,
moment, that is
right.
correct.
Because of his definitions of how he sees me.
No, because he is absorbed in his own issues.
I see.
It wouldn't matter who it came from at this time.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions with reference to last week's discussion?
I want to talk about raccoons. Today, in modern psychology, there's a new buzzword going around called flow. And actually, several authors have written about it. And what it talks about, obviously there's in this paradigm shift that we're involved in, a lot of people are saying that all the depression, all of the dissatisfaction, all of the unfulfillment is upsetting a lot of people. so that the old paradigm of psychology no longer seems to be working. So this term flow now has come in, where it's linked with happiness, looking forward to going to your job, being happy with your life, feeling like you're in the flow, to put it, to expand on the catchphrase. The question that I have, and athletes have the same thing, you know, like certain athletes know that they're going to win that race that day because they're just in an altered state of mind, so to speak. The dynamic there, and of course, some psychologists are more in the spiritual bent, where they're saying there is a divine connection going on. Okay, but this catchphrase, being in the flow, is so bannered about. I'm wondering if you can be in the flow and not be conscious of being connected with your guide or with God or with, you see what I mean? Or is there always some subliminal realization that something else is going on? Do you see what I'm getting at? Is it another ego dynamic that we're talking about, or is there an actual thing that these people are experiencing where they're at some level they're recognizing that they're not alone, that there is divine guidance happening, and that's what's responsible for their superlative experience?
The latter. Yes.
So it's not like what we're doing here, but at some level they recognize that it's just not them being responsible for being in the flow. Is that what you mean?
That is correct.
Okay. So I take
What is different about that from being here?
Well, in other words, the difference I see is that we acknowledge that this level of incompetence, ego incompetence, okay, is there, okay, and that we need help. Where these guys, they train hard, you know what I mean, and then one day they wake up and they go, I can feel it, I'm in the flow, I'm going to win this event. That's what I mean. It's just that we're conscious of the mechanism that's going on, or at least we have the ability to be conscious. Whether
Yes.
we practice it or not is another thing.
And
Where
what
these guys
I'm after is not only to be conscious of the mechanism, but for each of you to actually engage in it like the athlete you're talking about. He's really doing it. And it has nothing to do with understanding the mechanism. Understanding the mechanism has nothing to do with actually engaging in it. It's just a thought about engaging in it.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So the athlete that engages in it, if you want to put it this way, is further ahead than those of you who understand the mechanism but haven't engaged it.
I see. Okay, thank you.
The truth has nothing to do with words. It has nothing to do with grasping concepts. It has nothing to do with understanding mechanisms.
It's experiential.
It's what happens when you abandon yourself to the void. It's what happens when you abandon yourself to the unknown and allow yourself to be there willingly, without reluctance. Then you feel the flow and you find yourself in it, and your behavior expresses it, not your idea about it, not your thought about it, not your understanding of it. And the fact is that the point of it all is to get the hang of being in the flow, where you find that you don't have to mess around with words and concepts and ideas anymore.
You can feel the flow.
Because the point is not to have the experience so that then you can abandon the experience and intellectualize with everybody about the experience. It is to succumb to the experience.
And this is akin to the creative process that great artists are able to get into. They get into an altered state by abandoning their personality, and then they're taken over by something, and then they create.
They get in the movement, yes.
Yes, so that's another aspect.
And yet their getting into the movement is highly focused with oils or watercolor or whatever a medium might be. But then it has nothing to do with when they're cooking their dinner.
Yes.
You see, and we're talking about being all-inclusive.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you're saying we should just let go?
Well, at the bottom line, all there is God. And whatever you think you are that would let go doesn't even really exist. And this is a very important point. If the ultimate conscious experience of being is for there to be no conscious experience of being other than what God is being, then whatever conscious experience of being you're having at the moment that's different isn't real, and the one that's having it doesn't exist, because it's just a concept of yourself that you are focusing on and identifying as you. And the reason this is important is that although we tread a fine line, sort of straddling reality and unreality, the fact is that because God is all, and the one who thinks he's waking up doesn't exist, it is important not to value too highly the processes of awakening that you're going through. Do you see what I mean? It would be well for you to take time each day to contemplate the fact that the reality is that God is all, and therefore God is all there is to you. And that's a done deal. In other words, the ultimate you're going to arrive at is already the ultimate right now. The accomplishment, you might say, has already been accomplished. And all that you're doing in your process of awakening is letting yourself into the conscious experience of the fact that it's always been the fact. It's always been the truth. You've always been the exact, perfect, holy expression of God. And again, the expression of God is God expressed. You get it? The expression of God is not you expressed by God. God, 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 God. The table, the glass. It's God. That's why it's called a journey without distance. Because all you're going to do is, in a moment of defenselessness, realize that you never were what you thought you were. And you never were an entity going through a process of purification to arrive at some evolutionary end point. Evolutionary meaning that you started out as something and became more and more and more until at the end what is there is hardly recognizable compared to the beginning of the journey. You are not going through an evolutionary process. You are simply coming out of insanity. You're simply coming out of misunderstanding. And it's you, the absolutely divine presence of God, coming out of a misunderstanding of what you are and what the world is. Which, as I've said over and over, is the kingdom of heaven. If you grasp this, you will not value your process of awakening so much that you miss waking up. You see? Because the one who's apparently in a process of waking up is part of the illusion. Now, because the one who is in a process of waking up is really the only one there is. In other words, God did not create His self-expression. That's you. And then you, through your imagination, created a second creation. If anyone is deluded, it's the Son of God, the divine one that you are right now. Because you are right now the very one God created, the very one God is being in this very moment as His self-expression. You, in your misinterpretation of yourself, identifying yourself by means of definitions you have created, will seem to be in a process of letting go of what has nothing to do with you, the divine you that you are. And so, this is where walking the fine line occurs. Because clarity or sanity regarding yourself is going to be experienced right where you are at the moment in terms of the definition you're holding of yourself in the moment and the undoing of it. But mind you, even though there seems to be this process of letting go of distorted perceptions of yourself, you can become preoccupied with that process. And that's what that is why it's important to remember that the ultimate about you is present right now, never was altered, even though you have imagined it was and you believe your imagination. so that you might understand